All right, guys, get over here. Let's huddle up. There's two types of people in this world. There's winners and there's losers. Jackson with an X.
My dad says that we're all winners if we just try our hardest.
No. Your dad is a loser. Welcome to the Rushmore Show, where it's all about your top four and nothing more. Hey, Andy, man, we got a great episode planned this week. It's our Easter week. We are celebrating baseball. Opening day just set off last week or so. And, man, the season is kicking off. We've seen amazing things happening down in the comments. We're seeing some of your favorite franchises. And don't forget to go and check out Thomas's Unbreakable Records. That show was awesome. There were so many records that I didn't even know of some of them, especially some of the ones you brought out, Andy. I'm sure you got some good stuff today, because today we're going to do something a little different. We're called the Rushmore Show, but we're going to give you some bottom tier stuff this week. We're going to be calling it the Ughhmore, right? And so we're going to do the most hated things about baseball. Now, this one was really hard for me, Andy, because I love baseball. And I had to really dig to find some things that I hate. And once I got to digging, there were some things that I just can't get over about the game of baseball. What about you, man?
Yeah, so this one, again, I've talked about it all month, the past two episodes also. This one was a little bit easier for me. And it's not that I hate baseball. I enjoy it. I just don't follow it as close as you do. But there are some things, man, about baseball that's just weird, man. Like, there's just some things that, from an outsider's perspective, if you look at it as somebody who's really not an avid fan, you look at it and you're like, why do they do that? That doesn't make any sense, right? So this was a fun one. I was really excited, and I'm so excited to get into today's conversation.
Dude, it's going to be a fun time. Now, look, we have another special guest. If you've been staying with us the last few weeks, we've been trying to ask some of our friends and followers to jump on here. If you want to be a part of the show, just let us know in the comments. But we brought on my friend, Pastor Dean. Man, hey, dude, how are you? Tell us, why would we have you on an Easter baseball special? Tell us all about you a little bit.
Well, first of all, thank you, Kirk and Andy, for having me on the show. Kirk and I go way back to our youth ministry days in good old Hotlanta. And so that was the trip of all trips, First of all, love Jesus and love baseball. What more do you possibly need, right? And so, but my fandom of baseball goes a little more, been following Tampa Bay for the entire 22 years they've been a franchise. The cool thing about Tampa is when they first came in, when they were granted the expansion, them in Arizona, I was living in Tampa. And we heard this little thing called the Tampa Bay Devil Rays was going to be there. And this guy named Lou Piniella was going to be involved. And I was like, what? And so been a Devil Rays fan for a long time. And then Tampa Bay decided, you know what, we're going to get rid of the Devil. We're just going to be called the Rays. And then they went up from there. So they've got the most unique ballpark in all of baseball, if you ask me, with a live Stingrays aquarium on the field. So, and if a player,
they also have a crosswalk that the guys that hit bombs hit every once in a while, and
it's actually in center field, just beyond the center field fence line. There's a Stingray aquarium. Now, you can walk up there before the game and pet the Stingray. It's a little two-finger thing, you know what I mean? They've got a whole little thing. SeaWorld sponsors it, that type thing. But the cool thing is, if a player hits a home run into that tank, Tampa Bay Foundation gives $1,000 to the local homeless shelter or whatever. And it's happened.
That's cool. I did not know that.
It's happened twice.
So, hey, guys, so let's jump into our segment today. It is going to be a fun segment. It's a little different. Our Rushmore, bottom tier of most hated things in baseball. Ugh. All right, Rushmore community, it is the moment you've all been waiting for. What on earth could Kirk say bad about baseball? It is our Rushmore of most hated things. Andy, as we get started, you're going to start us off with Rosie. What was your criteria and things that you were thinking of today on how you decided to tell us your complete hatred for things of baseball?
Okay, so this one, as I mentioned in the beginning, was a little bit easier for me. It's entertaining, to say the least.
I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be fun.
There are some things about baseball that just don't make sense to me. Let me just say this beforehand. Baseball, out of every sport, popular major sport in the United States at least, is the most set on tradition out of everyone. I mean, football is constantly changing, right? Basketball is constantly changing. Whereas I feel like there's just things in baseball that it's like so many unspoken rules and just traditions that just get followed because of, and rightfully so. I mean, it's been around since the dawn of time, right? Baseball. So, but this first one for me and my Rosie on my list of most hated things of my more for today is this. I don't understand, and I think it's so silly that managers wear uniforms. It is so weird. Like, can you imagine? Look, put yourself in any other sport, right? Any other sport. Bill Belichick comes out, Patriots. He's got shoulder pads, a helmet. He's got everything. He's got the little, play sheet here. Like, no, they don't do that anywhere else. You're not getting out there. You're 87 years old. You're not fooling anybody. You're not getting on the diamond. You are not playing, right? Why are you wearing a uniform, right? I don't walk into McDonald's and wear a uniform unless I'm working there and doing the task, right? I don't just sit down in my little McDonald's. Like, nowhere else in the world does this happen other than baseball. Like, it's the only place where somebody who's not competing or participate. I mean, they're participating. I get it. It's a different sense. But why do you need the uniform? It doesn't make sense to me.
I just automatically really thought of randomly, real quick, basketball coaches, hockey coaches, lacrosse coaches, soccer coaches, all in these uniforms. But baseball, you're right. Baseball does put their managers in uniform. But I don't know. What would they wear? Just like shorts and
like a polo, and I mean, just wear what like any other.
Well, what if they showed up in a shirt and tie like the basketball coach?
Yeah, and that I think is even a little bit more obnoxious. Like, and then they get mad and they're like throwing their jacket off. Yeah, because it is true, man. Dude, as you can hear from my enjoyment, that one that kills me, dude. I can't imagine. I can't imagine not seeing like some of these coaches. Like, I'm trying to envision what they're wearing.
All right, so Kirk, we're going to go to you. You heard about my Rosie. Managers wearing uniforms doesn't make sense to me. But Kirk, what is your Rosie? This is difficult, man, for you. I know it's going to be a difficult.
It was difficult, but it wasn't. There's some things that I wish the game did better at, and then there's some players and teams that I really look towards that just with a huge disdain in my life. And then, but there are some rules and some just ways of the game. You mentioned it. Baseball is a traditions game. It's quite a thinking game. It's quite a game that I spoke about this in my hot take back. I believe it was the Olympics episode, right? Maybe way back then, talking about baseball. I think in order to play baseball, in order to play all of these sports, you have to have a different set of tools, right? But I think baseball players, to me, do probably, if not the hardest, one of the hardest things imaginable, hitting the fastball, curveball, slider, change, different speeds, bat, round, ball, round, the whole 9 yards. Now, as I'm talking about that, I love the idea that men work tremendously to get to this spot. They learn the game. They work on fundamentals. They do all of that. And then we have this knucklehead that decides the game called the umpire.
Oh,
right? Man. And let me just say this.
You're going there.
I am an umpire. I've been an umpire my whole life. I love getting out there and umping, but what I hate is sometimes that the umpire makes decisions that don't work. But that's not even it. That's not the one I'm going to give you. What I'm going to give you is I love the fact that we get to bark at him and we get to yell at him and we get to tell him how bad we think it is and that we can go on and on. And now Major League Baseball has an idea that they're going to throw out there that they're going to actually use a robotic ump.
Yes.
In that to the earpiece of the guy behind the plate so that he can never miss a call for the rest of his life. I don't know how I feel about it going forward and how it's going to work. But initially, just thinking about it, I hate it. I hate everything about it. I love the idea that if a pitcher is on the hill and they are hitting their spots and they're hitting that outside corner, boom, 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 3, 4, 5, 7 times in a row, that he's going to snag 3 or 4 of those calls because a very good catcher is going to give a good frame. And that you're strategically throwing that ball in a spot where you know the hitter cannot hit it, or it's going to give you the right play in the field. But if we're robotically doing this, you're telling me the only way that a pitcher can get a strike call or get an advantage is if he actually puts it in the square that needs to happen.
Right.
This is going to change hitting and pitching forever. Like literally, like guys are going in order to, when it's a 3-2 count, in order to get this guy, I'm going to have to put it down the middle or within the square. I don't like it. I like the idea that it's done. We have the human part of the game. We have human part of the game. I personally, I wish they'd take all the technology out of baseball and some of the other sports really. Like, we had the Astros thing, can't go by that, but they're staring at cameras and getting signs. But now I don't see much different when a guy goes on the field, hits the ball, gets out, comes in, pulls an iPad out and looks at where the guy pitched. So next time he can't throw him those pitches. I like the idea that we are learning the game, learning the places, moving your players because you've studied the team and you've played them 18 times a year. You've played them 70 years in a row. You should know some of these players. So my thing is this. I hate the idea that technology is going to take the human part of the game out. Do not let umpires be robots.
God.
Don't do it.
I'm just thinking, I don't know. You said robot ump. I thought like literally like a robot.
Back in the day, the Nintendo where you roll up like Johnny Five.
Here's a question: does the robot umpire wear the umpire's uniform?
So what I think it is. So I've watched a couple of videos. The umpire actually gets behind the mound because he's going to call outs and other things that are happening. And then there's like an earpiece. There's like 3 or 4 different cameras aimed right at the plate that zones into the square. And as soon as it hits the glove, there's like a sound of strike or ball. And here's the thing. The ump gets to overrule it if he wants to. But it would be bad for his job if he overrules it egregiously, right?
Right.
And they actually interviewed a couple of the umps afterwards. And they're like, yeah, I don't know that I like this at all. I mean, so they're listening, strike. And it seems to be pretty quick. But for me, the strategy of the pitch, the what are we going to throw completely changes. And I think a lot of guys are going to learn the system and be able to sit dead red. Here's the problem with baseball. Baseball loves the long ball. They want to see home runs. That's it. The greatest part about baseball, honestly, is the 1-0 no-hitter complete game.
Sure.
That's what makes baseball great. But that doesn't bring in fans that aren't baseball purists. To bring in fans, it needs to be 13-11. And 7 home runs have been hit throughout the time, 2 grand slams, a couple 2-run dingers, some doubles in the gap. They want to see hits. And yeah, it's gonna change the game forever if this completely goes through. So, anyways, that's my Rosie. That's my number 4, right? And so we're jumping off really hot. No uniforms, no robots. Dean, welcome to the show. Rosie's number 4. Tell us what your most hated thing about baseball is.
Number 4, the most hated thing that I've seen right now, and this has just happened in the last couple of years, that I've noticed. We made some changes to the extra innings rule back during the pandemic in 2020. And recently they chose to go back to normal format with this upcoming season. I hate this. I don't like this. I liked the extra innings rules of 2020. And the rule I'm talking about is a ghost man or a runner given to you on second base at the top of the 10th inning. I think it changed.
I thought they kept it.
No, they got rid of it this year.
Okay. I thought that yeah.
Fact check me on that later, okay? And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I hate that they got rid of it because a few years ago, baseball decided, you know what? Our games are going on too long. The pace of play, which is a common complaint among people who watch baseball, is, dear Lord, get this game over with. Nothing is going on, okay? MLB noticed the games were going on and on and on and on. 16, 17 innings, even the 9-inning games were lasting longer than 3 hours. And they said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to limit the number of mound visits. We're going to put a pitch counter involved or a pitch timer involved and limit the commercial breaks. And we're going to get this game going faster. And they did. They took it down to about a 3-hour window, maybe 2:45, 3-hour game. That's great. It's great entertainment. Your kids are done. If you're at the ballpark, your kids are done after 3 hours. They've been there since batting practice. Time to go home, right? Well, when they had the pandemic, the idea behind it was, okay, let's get these players on the field and then off the field as fast as possible. Let's limit the contact, right? Let's limit the player-to-player contact. That's what the whole pandemic rule came about. Same thing with the 7-inning doubleheader. Is they wanted to limit the amount of time that people were on the field. But then they got rid of it. And I hate that because I like the fact that it changes the dynamic of the game at the top of the 10th inning. You've got somebody on second base.
Oh, no, what's on second?
That's given to you, and you've got to now match it. It's kind of like the overtime controversy in the NFL this past year. Both teams possess the ball type thing, which has now been changed in postseason play. So that's the thing that I hate. Number 4. Now, there's some more higher up on the list that I hate, but I would prefer to go back.
Yeah. So look, I'm with you on this one, and we're going to catch hate. We're going to catch hate from our fans or other fans. I'm going to tell you, we're going to catch hate because watching on social media, people hate this rule. They hate it bad. It's one of those rules. This ghost man, the second man, and I love the rule. Purist. I consider myself a little bit of a purist. But this one and some of the other rule changes like the DH, I am all aboard. I'm all aboard.
Yeah.
It makes
the universal DH.
I think it makes the game tremendously better. And you want to see runs scored, this is it. Nobody wants to sit through a 27-inning game. Hey, Andy, part 2. Come on, number 3, TJ Jazzy.
I just
third most hated thing in baseball, man. This has been a fun football. I love it.
So before I get into that real quick, just to talk about your overtime thing, I just did a little research. May 1st, 1920. You ready to go back in time? May 1st, 1920. The Brooklyn Robins versus the Boston Braves went 26 innings. 26 innings. Do you know what the final score was?
2-2.
1-1. I got mad reading that. I got so mad just I felt like I wasted my time reading that stat. I can't imagine. They said it was like almost 4 hours of a game. It's crazy. So I totally get it. I'm contemplating putting that as my hated thing, but I won't because I have a list. But I just wanted to piggyback on that. I can't imagine that. That's crazy.
That's a good stat, man. That's a good stat. 26 innings. That pitcher. You're running out of pitching. You're running out of pitching.
Maybe the manager is going in at that point since he's got a uniform on. Maybe you got to throw the manager in. Who knows?
Well, most managers are catchers. So just say.
Well, yeah, who knows? Anyway, so let's go to my number 3. Here's my number 3. TJ Jazzy Jeff on Hated Things of Sports. And here's one of the biggest things to me. And it doesn't rank number 1 because the other 2 things are like really ridiculous. But this is one of the things that bothers me so much. I got into sports and liking sports and watching sports and even playing sports and stuff because I wasn't good in school, right? I mean, I was like, all of these subjects suck, but sports are fun, right? Like that, this is all cool. And the third thing, my TJ Jazzy Jeff, of what I hate about really any sport, but it's really, really specific to baseball, is statistics.
Mathematics and strange symbols now as far as Major League Baseball is concerned. And they went to a lot of work to come up with the fact that Jimmy Rollins should not be the leadoff man. I wouldn't bore you with all the numbers and all the things that they talked about the OBP and the SLG and the ISO and you name it. But they said that Jimmy Rollins should not be the leadoff man.
Bro, listen, there are, and I get it. So when you're in football, what do I have to worry about? Yards, touchdowns, I mean, that's wins. I mean, like, there's not much. There's like a total QBR thing, which is kind of weird, which I don't really pay attention to. But in baseball, guys, there is a person hired to say, this guy hits whatever percentage against left-hand batters during a solar eclipse of when he eats pizza the night before. Like, what statistic? Who is going through the record books and like putting all this work in? I can't stand statistics in life because ultimately I feel like you can make statistics say whatever story you want them to say. There's 2 sides to both statistics, right? And 90% of statistics are made up, right? So like there are just so many things. And it's like numbers and acronyms. Like this guy's LMNOP is a 0.7. Oh, okay, cool. Is he good? Do they win? Does he have championships? That's all I care about, right? So statistics are so crazy to me. And when they fill the time, and this kind of goes into like the length of the game and stuff, and it's like they're trying to find stuff to talk about. Can you imagine in that 1-1 game in 26 innings what these guys were talking about at that point? Like the statistics that get filled in by commentators, like I can't wrap my mind around it. The amount of math that's involved in this. There are some statistics that, okay, cool, that's easy to track, right? Like I said, wins, losses, hits, like stolen base, those things are easy to count and whatever. But when you start getting into this guy's, how he hits against pitchers that are a Leo, like, why do I care about that? What does that do? It's ridiculous. And to me, it's giving somebody else a job. They're just figuring out what, so I can't stand statistics, and that's my TJ.
I'm gonna have to boo. Dude, you know me. I love stats. I love stats in every sport. That's why I love fantasy football. That's why I liked fantasy baseball, except it took too long. By July, I'm like, gosh, I just want to be done with it. But following my kids' stats, my stats. I remember I used to have my hat, and under my hat, I had all my stats written, and I was keeping them as I played. I love stats. I think one of the main reasons is because I collect cards. And when I collect those cards back as a little kid, the first thing you do is flip the card over and see what so-and-so did last year or whatever. And that was pre-internet, right? And so you didn't know that Randall Cunningham had the farthest punt ever at that time because of some crazy stat that was down there. But baseball, you're right. There are so many things. There's things that I'm like, how did they figure that out? I don't that's a pretty good stat to know. Because if I need to lay down a bunt and you're terrible at bunts and your defense sucks over there, I'm going to lay down a bunt
all day.
And, Oakland made it a big deal with the Moneyball thing. And so that even pushed it even further with the stats and that stuff. Dean, I'm sure you got some stat things, huh?
It's not okay. First of all, I was never good in math. Okay, so stats.
This is a common thread. Guys that don't like stats are not math.
I'm horrible at math. I was terrible at math.
I will go back to what Andy said a minute ago. And there is one guy or a team of guys that sits there and has to do all that numbers on a spreadsheet, okay, of the solar eclipse no hitter type thing.
Yeah.
Fun fact: he talks about the one guy, the one stat guy. Fun fact: every Major League Baseball team has a baseball mutter. Did you know this?
Mm-mm.
His entire job is to sit there before every game and mud up a 100-ish baseballs and put them in 5-gallon buckets. Why? How do you mud up a baseball? You do it by hand in the dirt and water. Boom, boom, boom. 100 times every game. Because the average lifespan of a baseball is 4 pitches. Did you realize that statistically? The average lifespan of a baseball is 4 pitches. Because if he fouls out and hits the ground, out. They don't use it again.
So here's a cool stat, Andy. 120 baseballs are used per game.
Like I said, 120.
Yeah. I'm getting so mad right now. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's get through this.
Yeah, let's jump into number 2 for me, man.
This is number 3.
Well, my second one, number 3.
Jazzy statistics. Our mind is going crazy with numbers right now, and we can't even count straight.
Dude, I love it. Dude, this show has been fun so far, man. Dude, we might have to have Dean back on more often. This is a good one. So, number 3, TJ Jazzy Jeff. My most hated thing, and I would think a lot of people would probably get behind me on this one, is the Hall of Fame and how it is this pompous group of people that only let certain folks in and out. But here's the deal. What I hate about it is that the Hall of Fame is elected by not players. It's elected by writers.
By
the
journalists.
Writers elect the Hall of Fame. Now, here's the thing. If you know anything about the Hall of Fame, they got to get a 75% to get in. So you need 3/4 or whatever. There's only been one unanimous election. I don't know how Jeter didn't get it.
Thank you. I was going to go there. Thank you.
I don't get it. One, and that was Mariano Rivera. Yeah, and rightfully so. But there are so many others that should have been unanimous. I don't agree. And this is kind of around sports. I don't like the amount of power that we give these guys that are like, you know what? He should be in the Hall of Fame. I just don't want it to be a unanimous. I just don't want it to be this year. Who is this jerk that's sitting there going, I'm not going to allow. You've never played the game. You've never picked up the bat. All you do is ask these ridiculous questions. And here you go. Speaking of the Hall of Fame, Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. Mark McGwire should be in the Hall of Fame. Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame. Going on with a long list of who should be in the Hall of Fame. My favorite player of all time, Don Mattingly, should be in the freaking Hall of Fame. I don't care what you say. There's like so many. There was like 5 or 6 guys that were like teetering this year. It was like, if they don't get enough votes, we're going to knock them off. And I'm like, why? Why are you the knucklehead that gets to say that? If you ask his peers, Barry Bonds is the greatest freaking player that's ever touched the dirt since Babe Ruth. Okay, so he did a little PD. Put a freaking asterisk. He's never been committed or anything. But yeah, we put Poppy in, who failed the test. I don't understand. A-Rod should be in the Hall of Fame. I don't care if you don't like him or not. He's a little weird, and he says ridiculous things, but he's a stat guy, and I love him, and he's a Yankee, and he won the World Series. I give him the freaking Hall of Fame. He deserves to be in there. So I could stand on my soapbox about this, but my number one thing is Pete Rose. Give the man a break. He's about to die. Put him in the Hall of Fame. He's got the most hits ever. Charlie Hustle deserves to be there. Like the Hall of Fame writers, I hate them. I hate everything about it. I hate the idea that if I don't get a certain amount, I get knocked off. And you know what? Roger Clemens, it just ticks me off. Anyways, so Hall of Fame and I almost put it higher in how it's elected, but so many greats of this game should have their spot enshrined. I don't care if you say this is 1992 to 2002. It's our steroid era. Put all of them right there. And let's celebrate them. They should be there. So that's my soapbox rant. Number 3, TJ Jazzy Jeff, Hall of Fame writers, you suck.
But can you just pause for a second and think? There's one guy walking around the U.S. that voted no to Derek Jeter. One guy.
I don't get it. I don't get it. And you know what? I'm not blind to say Derek Jeter is not the greatest shortstop ever, but he put up some phenomenal numbers. He's like fourth in hits ever. He's got 3,000 hits. He's got an amazing freaking fielding percentage. He's got 5 championships. He's got the list goes on and on. He's the captain of those.
Now, let's be honest. We may not know this guy's name. The baseball writer they voted no. We may not know his name, but can we all agree he writes for somewhere near Boston?
Oh, got to be. Got to be. And that's my thing. That's my thing. Listen, I hate Big Papi, but he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I would not vote him out. All right.
All right. You've been able to let it off your chest.
We're going to jump into you, Dino, man.
Okay.
Jazzy Jeff.
So we've talked on this already. So this is going to be a short one, okay? We've talked about this one already, but I hate the fact that baseball actually turned down the robot umps. Yes, we're going to go back to that for a minute. I would be all about robot umps, just like I was about the video review. Baseball was the last person to get on board with the whole video review process. They really were. So, and why would you, number 2, why would you not call that robot ump system the Joe West 2.0? Okay, come on.
The Angel Hernandez, baby.
That's the best way to put. In the absence of Joe West, he retired last year. In the absence of Joe West, we need somebody robotic or some sort of umpire to where, it brings a little more integrity to the game. I'll just leave it at this. I've seen too many games in the bottom of the 9th, 2 out, tying runners on third base, and a called high and outside strike, game's over. Whoa, timeout. I've seen it happen too many times. So we talked about it earlier.
Yeah,
Kirk, you and I disagree.
There are things positive about it.
Right.
I just think it takes a big human element out of how you're going to pitch. Like, look, I'm a catcher. My daughter's a catcher. I'm training my son up to be a catcher. One of the best things in the world, one of my favorite things about baseball is a catcher that knows how to steal a strike.
Sure.
That is a big
part of the game. It's part of the game.
It's a big deal. They won't have that anymore.
Now,
they won't have that anymore.
Here's an idea. Test run it for a year in the minor leagues. If it sucks, it sucks. Move on.
Well, they are. They're still testing it. It's gone next to the next level. They denied it for this year, but I'm positive within the next 5 or so years, we're going to hear about it every year until they accept it. There are some people in there that want it. I kind of feel for some of the pitchers, and just the way the game is played is going to be different. I mean, it's the same reason people got ticked off about the shift. It's the way the game played is going to be different. And I digress. So, anyway. Hey, that's a good one, though. That's a good one. I'm glad you're on the other side. It's kind of like a Rushmore, but it's not. So, so we're kind of, yep. So, well, look, let's jump in. We're halfway through the link. Andy, I know you've got one to make me laugh. Here we go. I'm getting my belly laugh ready to go. Who is your link? What is the second thing greatest that you hate about baseball?
All right. So first of all, I like that we have 2 people on the war of the robots on 2 different sides here. It's like
the war machines.
Yeah. Like, do you imagine this weird sci-fi thriller of like robot umpires taking over the world?
Terminator 7.
John Connor.
Have you seen this? Anyway, So you mentioned that's kind of like a Rushmore, but actually, I'm gonna open up our first actual Rushmore with you, Kirk, the one you just mentioned, and it's the Hall of Fame. To me, is just ridiculous. This is not one where I get funny. I mean, whatever it is, even as an outsider, to look at the Hall of Fame and be like, well, that's stupid. Like, that, why are we? To me, it almost comes off as just this elite few. Like, I imagine them like wearing their robes, like walking into this secret society of like voting for who's in this, like the Pharisees, right? Of this group of people who, like you said, don't play baseball, right? I love how the NFL opens up fan voting for the Hall of Fame. And are all the fans the smartest? Are they going to pick biased? Yeah, absolutely. Sure, they are. But the best players are going to get into the Hall of Fame. There's no doubt. When you look at the NFL Hall of Fame every year, there's snubs. Yeah, but you know what? They're going to get in next year, or they're going to get in eventually, right? There's going to be these people who get in, but the right people get in, right? And, like, not enough people are going to vote for this low tier. This person who doesn't deserve to get in is not going to have enough fans that are going to vote for them in. That's just the reality of it. So why do we not just open up fan voting? Look, the game is for the fans. It's not a social club that you have to pay to get into. This is not like some elite club, right? It's for the fans. We show it on TV. We get all these millions and millions of dollars from TV revenue and merchandise sales and everything. Why? Because of the fans, not because of the writers, not because of the people who don't know what they're doing, who are going to hold a grudge against somebody because he played in a city that was a rival, right?
Or you didn't get the interview.
Or he did, right? Something like that. No, let the fans vote. Then the best players are going to get in. I guarantee you, the fans vote today. Bonds is in, right? Pete Rose is in. All the guys you just mentioned are in. There's no doubt, right? And so it's silly. It's
Let me just go back and say this: Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa saved baseball. If neither one,
that is why I'm into baseball.
It's dumb. It's dumb. 1998 and that run that they had was amazing. I don't care if the bat was corked. I don't care if they were shooting up on TV. It saved baseball. These guys are dropping bombs, and for all those that say, "Oh well, he hit all those home runs because he did steroids," false. You have to hit the ball first. You have to put good contact on it. Maybe he's a little stronger, but guys were taking steroids as pitchers, right? And you're like, you see it all the time. The guy that always gets like popped nowadays is some minor league relief pitcher from the lug nuts. It's like it's not because of the power hitting guys or anything like that. Mike Trout is a freaking monster. But look, you take his eye away and his hand-eye coordination. I don't care how strong you are. I don't care how strong you are. I mean, it's ridiculous. Now, Jose Canseco probably shouldn't be in the Hall. Little deal, 40-40. But a lot of those guys, man. And there's other guys that minus the steroid era, minus just because you hate them, just played on bad teams. And they don't get in, but they were stats were amazing. Listen, they're great leaders.
There are players from the 1910s and 20s who were doing cocaine while they were playing and drinking out, like who are celebrated, right?
They were actually hitting like a sock with a 2x4.
Like they're celebrated and loved, right? And because this.
Okay, so here's my biggest complaint. Two things. Ty Cobb, who's on our thumbnail because he's probably the most hated player ever, sharpened his spikes, all these things. He's in the Hall of Fame, and he did some horrific things. That's number one. Number two, I am positive, mark me down, positive, that there are positive tests of steroids that are in the Hall right now. Now. Not just Poppy, because that was kind of known. There are other guys. And look, there are some guys that played on that Oakland Athletics team while McGwire and Canseco were there are in the Hall. You think it was just those two in the locker room? Give me a break. That's the Bash brothers. Carly Lansford was huge. Ricky Henderson ran like a 3-0. Give me a break. These guys are all those guys. They were. All right. Once the writers find out they have one in, what are you going to do then? We're just going to restart the vote?
Right. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Anyway.
So that's a crush war. That's the Hall of Fame. It's ridiculous.
Hall of Fame writers, you suck. So, anyways.
Second time he said that. So.
Second time. R.I.P. writers.
All right, Kirk. So let's go to your link. What's your number 2 you most hated things about baseball?
All right. This one is going to be a little different. One, a couple years ago, they implemented the shift. Tampa Bay was the ones that really started it. And that was cool. It was a smart thing to do when the shift came in. It was kind of figuring out the game. There were no real rules. The rules are trying to adjust them now. And I was watching the other day. It didn't even look like it really adjusted at all. But I'm not so much against the shift. I do like the fact that, there are guys like Tony Gwynn or whoever had hit like 370 that didn't have a guy standing in the outfield for those. And we get that purist side of things. But what I hate more than ever is the fact that while we watched the shift, that a part of the game, and I kind of alluded to this to earlier, is all about the long ball. We have eliminated small ball. And small ball in a term in baseball is bunting guys and stealing guys to move them over, hitting behind the runner. This is an art form that is not in our new game. There are a few guys that do it. The DJ LeMahieu's is making a ton of money because he hits behind the runners. Those guys are really awesome, but that's not what makes money. You make money by striking out 150 times, but hitting 40 home runs. And, there's a stat out there, and, I keep saying stats. There's a stat out there where like Tony Gwynn went like a full season striking out like 10 times or something ridiculous. Right. And those guys are just not around. Look, if I'm out there, and I wasn't that good to make it there. I mean, it was my dream ever, my whole life was to play third base for the Yankees. If I'm out there and I see guys shift all the way over and third base is wide open, I'm hitting a bunt down that line as hard as I can, and it's going to roll all the way to left field. Like, I don't understand why they don't do that. I don't understand why they're not doing drag bunts, or they're not doing squeeze bunts anymore. The art of the steal, the art of really learning the game and how it's played is far gone. And probably, so my link most hated thing is that small ball is all but dead in modern baseball. And it really, like, when I'm teaching my kids, I got my daughter who's rolling through, and my son who's just like, literally, he's just his first year of coach pitch. From day one, when we work, it's not about hitting the home run. Dad, I want to hit it as high and far as I can. You're 7. Wow. Let's hit it as hard as we can at the pitcher and make him fall over. That's what I want you to do. Hit it as hard as you can through the gaps, because it's just a long start. And so that really speaks to how I like to see the game played. I don't mind the shift as much. I'm okay with it not going back or either way. But if they do have the shift, freaking put down a bunt, dude. Put down a bunt. That's all I got to say about that. Number 2, most hated thing is not having small ball in today's game. What y'all think about that?
I love that idea. Actually, as a coach, you always want to tell players, listen, don't swing for the fences every time. Consistency is what you're going for. Consistency over intense effort every time. And so that's you're dead on, man. Small ball, and that's exciting too, because how many home run balls do we think are home runs and they end up being a pop out? It happens all the time.
All right, man. This is fun. What's our link there, Dean? What's the link?
My link, number 2, and this is gonna be a controversial one. I'm just gonna throw it out there and say, I love to hate David Ortiz. Here's why I say that.
Okay.
Here's why I say that. Number 1, phenomenal ball player. When you look at the entire Red Sox history, no other player in the storied history of the Red Sox has had that much of a charisma than him. Straight up. First of all, that's why I hate him, because I hate him at the plate. As a Tampa Bay fan, when that guy swings the bat, your heart skips a beat. Okay? It really does. Because you go, oh, okay, good. He missed or whatever. He was so good as a DH. He struck fear into the heart of every pitcher he ever faced, including Tampa Bay. He has burned Tampa Bay more times than I care to recount as a Tampa Bay fan. Okay? Now, in his postseason, I love him to death. As a commentator, phenomenal guy. He knows what he's talking about. He's articulate. He's charismatic. He's funny.
How about when he's on Saturday Night Live?
¿Cómo estás? Ellos.
Muy bien. ¿Y tú?
Shut up.
Yes!
Oh, my goodness.
That's my favorite.
The Saturday Night Live scale with Henry Keenan Thompson, phenomenal. Phenomenal. The Mofongo, yeah, phenomenal. Okay. Love it. You can have Mofongo.
Verde con pollo.
Queso. It's phenomenal. Okay. But when he took the plate, everybody in the stadium was like, is he going to crush it? Because it was a high likelihood he was. Okay. And can we talk about for a moment that poor phone booth and the Baltimore dugout that he destroyed that time? Okay. He got called out, was yelling at the umpire. He gets ejected, but before he gets ejected, he takes the bat still in his hand and just destroys the crap out of this phone booth, the dugout phone booth. That was three years later he retired. The Orioles, just as a funny thing to him, gave him a replica of that phone in a case as a going away happy retirement thing.
See you later, alligator.
It was just hilarious to me. But like I said, I love to hate him. I love to hate on him because he was so good of a player from a hitting perspective. That's the only reason why I go, oh man, really? How many grand slams did we get burned by? We got burned by several grand slams by Poppy. So that's my number 2 hated thing.
Right. All right, look, we're here. We're landing this plane. George is coming in, man. Who's number 1, Andy? Who is your DG dub, man? Give us the George of most hated.
My George, my number 1 most hated thing is another thing that just does not make sense. It's specific to baseball. I say specific. There's one other exception I'll explain in a minute. But I cannot stand the fact that every baseball stadium is different, right? Like even dimensions, right? Can you imagine this? You go to a Saints game. I'm a Saints fan, okay, right? So you go to a Saints game, and the Saints have an 80-yard field, right? They have an 80-yard field. Well, yeah, more touchdowns are going to be scored because there's 20 less yards you have to go, right? Or you go to this other one and it's 110 yards, right? It doesn't make sense. Or you go to a basketball game and the 3-point line is 5 feet closer to the goal. Well, of course they're going to score more there. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, why is there not one set? And I get like, look, one of the highlights of baseball, you know, compared to other sports, and football's kind of getting this way now too, but the stadiums are just such a huge draw. Like you talked about there in Tampa, like how cool and unique the stadium is. The one pro stadium I've ever been to was Angels. I went to an Angels game, and just that whole like waterfall, like cool thing out there. Yeah. Plus the big A with the halo. And then you got outside, you got the big helmet. Like it's really cool. Like there's so many cool things about the park, but it just doesn't make sense that this park is going to have this, you know, this distance. And not only that, like some of them are like weird, like cut different ways.
Yeah, I was thinking, what if like in Kansas City's end zone, we just like drew a fan arrowhead box right into one of them, and yeah, right. It doesn't get around the building.
Kind of like they've got the bullpen out there. They can put the puncher warm up out there.
Isn't there a stadium that like the outfield like starts going uphill?
Not anymore, but that used to be Astros. That used to be in Astrodome.
Like, so there's just so many differences between the fields that it's almost like you're playing a different sport. So like, then I think about like, okay, we talk about home runs and we talk about runs and different things like that has an impact on it, right? I mean, I would assume the distance is going to have a huge impact on it. Okay.
Well, so that's one of the big reasons about like, say, New York. So New York's right field porch is shorter than most other fields. And so that's a big deal. In the last like 4 or 5 years, we have had a very small amount of left-handed hitters, which doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. Like the Brian Cashman and all those guys at the Yankees should be trying to bring in big left-handed bats because the porch is short. But because that's how teams plan their outfield. Like Oakland, huge foul territory. So they want good corners. Their third base and first base need to be able to cover good ground. Right, because they play over there. Yeah,
so it's almost like a different. It's a different sport. You know, like in a way, like there's a different strategy that's involved in it, and it's like, why? You know, every other sport has got a pretty set. This is their field dimensions. This is what their field. You know, some of the outside stuff that doesn't really have anything to do with in play that can look different. That's all whatever, right? But the infield play itself is pretty consistent everywhere else. The one thing is like, and when I was reading this up, is that some people bring up, well, all golf courses are different. Oh, that's stupid. Golf's not a sport. Just get out of here. That's a hot take for another day. It's fun. It's just whatever.
Ouch.
But it is a sport. I totally kid there. But it's different. It's not a team sport. Like there's different. Yeah, that's okay. But for a major sport to not have one consistent field dimension, field requirements and different things like that, it just again doesn't make sense. Just like
that's where you're coming from, but I think that gives a little bit of the nostalgic feel, the little bit of the
See, I don't agree. So just because it's nostalgic doesn't mean it can't be
or
dumb.
tradition.
Like it's still dumb.
It's probably the wrong word.
Well, tradition.
It's
Yeah.
a part
Okay.
of the tradition.
Yeah. But but it was a tradition back in the day for women not to have a right to vote. And that changes. It's okay. We can change traditions. And that's, I think, overarching for me with baseball. And I mentioned it before with my criteria. It's so stuck on tradition. And I don't say get rid of all tradition. I think that should definitely be a part of it. But I think there are wise moves that you can make that's if I really think of this objectively, this doesn't make sense. So anyway, that's my soapbox. That's the things that don't make sense that I don't really care about for baseball. That's my George. Right. Kirk, what you got? What is your George of most hated?
Everybody knows what my George is. I hate the Red Sox. We can finish right there. No, 100%. The whole organization. It's one of 3 organizations that. So my George. Let me just put it out there so you can get a little graphic.
I hate the Boston Red Sox.
So, look, here's the thing. Raised up a Yankees fan, always will be a Yankees fan. I hate other teams in AL East. I don't really dislike the Rays as much as the other ones because they're kind of the new guy, and I kind of like the idea that they do it right. But the Red Sox, though, man, it was really awesome to have that curse, and they'd always be so good, and we just hate on them and bag on them. And then they started winning, and they've done more than just win. They've won 3, I think, since 2000, and it's in the 2000s. They've won 3. They broke the curse, and now they're back to the second most. But here's the thing: Poppy is probably my most lovable guy on the team. I get what you were saying. It's kind of a crush more, maybe a half more. But Poppy's probably my favorite guy just because of who he is. And I respected who he was as a player. Didn't like him when he was on the field, love him off the field. So it's kind of polarizing. But there are some guys I hate still today. Maybe this will get to him on a recliner, hey, what's this about? And then they'll go, gosh, this guy really don't like me. Jason Varitek, can't stand the guy. Dustin Pedroia, can't stand the guy. I can't take him. The Pedro Martinez. Look, when he had Zimmer in the headlock, dude, you're a great pitcher. Can't stand you. I just can't. Jason Varitek is the one at the very top of the list, though. He is the highest of the high. Manny Ramirez. I liked Manny for a portion because he actually did stupid stuff that embarrassed the team, and I always, way to go, Man Ram. But he was a beast too. But there are players now that I don't like, and I was so happy when the report came out a week ago or so that Rafael Devers is not taking that contract. I hope he leaves the Red Sox, goes and plays for obscurity for the future Montreal Expos that are coming in 2020, whatever. I can't stand that guy. But here's the deal. It really isn't about the players. It's what rivalries are about. And if there's a big rivalry, as a Saints fan, I hate the Falcons, right? Starting to not like the Tampa Bay Bucks, but once Brady leaves, they're going to be obscure again.
Easy.
Yay! And then, but as a Chiefs fan, hate the Broncos, right? Hate the Broncos, hate the Raiders. As a LSU fan, hate Alabama.
Roll Tide!
There's no way that I'm just going to haphazardly cheer for this team to be successful because my grandpa liked them, right? And so in my family, shout out to you, Tracy. Thanks for watching. She's the only person in my family that likes the Red Sox. I don't know anybody in my family that likes the freaking Falcons or anybody in my family that likes Roll Tide. But here's the thing. That's just what fandom's about. I love the fact that they're successful because that makes the game great. Mm-hmm. I just love to see them fail. And so it's a part of it. There's 2 things that I look at throughout the baseball season every single day. Did the Yankees win? Did the Red Sox lose? Did the Yankees win? Did the Red Sox lose? That's it. That's all I do all day. The Yankees win, Red Sox lose. All right. So anyways, my number 1 down with the Beantown, man. I don't honestly, I don't much like anything Boston. I don't like the Celtics. I don't like the Patriots. I don't like the Bruins. I don't like Boston. Boston's a cool place to be, though.
You like clam chowder?
Clam chowder. Pocket in the yard.
Cool place to be.
I do like some of the actors that have come out of Boston. I mean, that's kind of
cool.
You're Ben Affleck guy? You're Ben Affleck guy?
Ben Affleck. How about those apples? Anyways, My number one, my George, we all knew who it was going to be,
Yeah.
but I hate the Boston Red Sox. So, number one, hey, last one, finishing up the show. Dean, man, my Rays fan. Where are you going to go? Where are you coming?
Another controversial opinion. This is going to make me the Stephen A. Smith of the Rushmore show.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you something.
Okay, just throw it out there. Okay. I don't I'll be easy with this. I hate Pete Rose. I'm just gonna throw it out there.
Whoa!
Here's why.
Okay.
Here's why.
Kirk left.
We had the Hall of Fame conversation earlier. I don't think he should be in the Hall of Fame. Here's why. Kirk is not even in the shot anymore.
Kirk fell out of his chair. Oh my gosh.
I had to have a good one for number one, right?
I love it.
Here's my thing. Okay. Yes, he was a good player. Yes, he had a tremendous amount of hits. But he did the unthinkable when he bet on baseball. And it went further when he lied about it for close to 3 decades. Okay. That to me says more about it than anything else. Because, for example, in my job right now, I work for a law enforcement agency as a law enforcement dispatcher. Okay. I had to have a polygraph for the job. They asked me all about my background, my history, everything. I had to sit there strapped to a chair for 3 hours for a polygraph examination. The most nerve-wracking 3 hours of my life. And here's the thing. They didn't care what my answers were. They cared that if I lied about it.
Mm.
And that's a big deal. They cared that if I lied about it. They didn't care about drug use or alcohol use or any of that stuff. They cared if I lied about it. And Pete Rose, for the better part of 30 years, and media reports across the spectrum, denied, and lied until eventually he came out and said, yeah, I lied about it. So where was his heart there? Was his heart looking for redemption? Was it looking for the Hall of Fame vote, which he might not get anyway? He's coming close to an ineligibility, and I forget the number when he's eligible, when he's finally not eligible anymore. I don't think we'll ever see the day that Pete Rose is in the Hall of Fame.
I think he's actually ineligible depends on if they restart, but I think he's ineligible for the amount of time that he's in. The only way that a guy who's ineligible can get back in is by like a different whole vote, like a mutiny, if you will.
I thought the commissioner had to say something about it too.
Yeah, the commissioner and everybody else has to. Yeah, it has to be like a pardon.
So yeah, kind of like a pardon, right? But to me, in his current state, he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. I'll catch a lot of hate from even my own friend here. Kirk.
So here's the thing, and look, I'm going to value your opinion. Look, I fell off the chair just because
he did.
Look, here's the thing. I tremendously think he is the greatest, top 3 probably greatest hitter of all time. I would put him probably next to Ted Williams, which is another Red Sox that okay. And then maybe Tony Gwynn. There's some other guys out there, the Rod Carews, the Wade Boggs, Tris Speakers, Ty, guys with crazy bat and average and eye control. Pete Rose had longevity. He did it all on the field. He was also a manager and and was a manager coach. But I understand what you're saying, and I'm even okay with that. Here's the thing. I just know that there comes a time, and we're pastors, we're leaders, and it's kind of where we were going towards the second part of this segment. Is there is a bit of a forgiveness that I think needs to happen, and he is a face of the baseball. He has. I don't know how genuine it is, and I'm not there to kind of look into it, but he has come out and said that he did, and even kind of talked about some of the things, betting for or against his team and how all those things happened, and never bet for them to lose, always bet for them to win, and there's some other things, and what I really looked towards the point was, I've had addictions before, and I believe this is one of his things. He was a gambler, and he bet on his Hall of Fame when he bet on this. Like, he set a precedence for others, which other people are learning not to do that. I mean, Calvin Ridley, you didn't pay attention, but here's the deal. You don't bet on sports. You don't bet on the thing. But now 2022, we have allowed betting to come into all sports.
Right.
And I think at this moment, this juncture, you're going to have it come up a little bit more, and there's some parameters out there. But I think it could be used and set to be a bridge for the game, a bridge and forgiveness and moving on and saying, hey, look, we're going to honorarily put you in, and because you deserve it. But you know, because we've seen how long, and I think people have learned. I hopefully, but I'm okay with if it doesn't happen. That doesn't stop my hate of the Hall of Fame selection, because it's not just Pete Rose. It's a lot of other things.
Now, stranger things have happened, right? Yep. Stranger things have happened. The one guy voting against it, Derek Jeter. Stranger things have happened. You know what I mean?
How you feel about Pete Rose there, Andrew?
Yeah, so I'm kind of, again, from an outsider perspective here. I mean, obviously hearing about it, it's one of those big things there. I kind of, man, it's so hard to not see both sides of that, because yes, like you said, Kirk, there is that, hey, forgiveness. There is that side of being, you know, just redemption and just all of that kind of that goes into it as well. But I think that, man, I don't want to get too spiritual here, but I think that for the forgiveness side and for all of that side of everything, that's for much more than the Hall of Fame, right? I think that here on earth, on this side of eternity, that you're still going to have, look, just because you're forgiven doesn't mean you don't still have the discipline because of it, right? So like not getting into the Hall of Fame, you know what, at the end of the day, when I get to heaven, are they going to say, hey, let me look at your records? Like, what were you the best at? Like, no, that's never going to be a part of the discussion. Right. You know, and for Pete Rose's sake, you know, I hope that, again, you mentioned that, you know, it was an addiction, obviously, of his, you know, that's not just a casual thing. You're just going to bet on your own team. I hope that he truly did repent of that. And he truly, whatever that addiction, whatever the root cause of all that was. And at the end of the day, the rewards on the other side are gonna be far superior than what they can get on this side. Now, that being said, the Hall of Fame is still stupid. like just I'm very much on your side with everything, Kirk, here. And you know, and it wouldn't, look, even with all that I said there, if they did do the honorary, like bringing him in, I'd be all for it. I'm great. You know, I think it's fantastic.
I think it could be done right. There could be some real things.
Yeah.
But hey, but look, that's a good segue. That is a real good segue. Yeah. It is the Monday after Easter, man. Happy Easter to everybody. I hope you enjoyed it with your families. I hope you had a great time. But we're going to jump into a second real quick part of kind of what is on our heart as pastors and leaders, and just let you guys how much you're loved. All right, guys, look, it is, again, like we said, we have just celebrated Easter Sunday. And the roundtable that we have on today for the Rushmore show, it has been a great time talking about baseball and most hated things. But as pastors and leaders in the church, we're all buddies. We're all youth pastors and young adult pastors and leaders that have really looked out for the next generation. It would go remiss if we didn't celebrate what we consider the World Series, the Super Bowl of our year every year. And that is the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And so Friday, this past Friday, we celebrate on Good Friday, which is so funny, Andy, why we call it Good Friday, you know, because death in the world is a big deal. And so I think it's kind of polarizing for some people that aren't Christians that don't understand it. But Good Friday is the day that Jesus died on the cross, and we celebrate that, right? Mm-hmm. But here's the thing: why was it good, right?
Yeah,
it was what we celebrate as the culmination of several things that we see in Scripture, miracles, prophecy, and stuff that's going to happen that gives us a detailed story of redemption for people in their sins, right? And we go all the way back to original sin, and then we follow that path. I mean, that as we read the word, we understand that this is the pivotal part, what makes us a Christian, right? It starts with the death of Jesus, correct?
Yeah. So for me, you know, prior to being a Christian, prior to being a believer. I grew up in a family that many of my family members went to church and definitely celebrated Good Friday and Easter and this whole season. And we knew that. But to me, Easter was we got a chocolate bunny. We did an Easter egg hunt. Like many people, that was probably our full scope of what Easter was. But now getting into knowing it, it was always that question, like, hey, what's good about Good Friday? I mean, why? Like literally, we're talking about the cross.
Crawfish boils.
We're talking about blood. We're talking about death. We're talking about sacrifice. Like to me, that was like, that's not good, right? But the further you get into it, it's like none of the goodness that we experience could have happened without Christ's sacrifice, right? Like we couldn't. Easter isn't a thing. Resurrection's not a thing if there isn't a death prior to it, right?
Now, logistically, or not logistically, but just like practically, right, on why that is a thing, right? So Old Testament time, they had sacrifice all the time. That's how they felt they got redeemed to Christ.
Yeah,
right.
And they sacrificed that in Old Testament times, and 3, 4, 5, 6,000 years ago, right? What we're talking about. When they did that, they were having a sacrifice through a list of things that God kind of gave them, but that wasn't a pure sacrifice, and it never was able to hold them throughout the next seasons of their life.
Right.
And in order to be completely washed away, we had to have a pure sacrifice, right, Dean? So that brings in Jesus, and Jesus was unblemished, right? That's why we call him the Lamb of God, and it takes away the sins of the world. And man, he climbed up on that tree so long ago. What do you think about that, dude?
Well, you talk about the pure and spotless lamb. The Passover lamb in the Old Testament, his bones were not able to be broken. That's one of the rules for a Passover lamb, is that the blood had to be gained without and the killing of the animal without breaking of any bones. Jesus, when he was on the cross, he gave up his spirit. A crucifixion actually is to actually deprive you of oxygen. You have to push yourself up to breathe over and over again. Jesus gave up his spirit before the Roman soldiers were able to break his legs. Typically, they quicken the death by breaking the bones of the legs and letting you bleed out. But when they looked up and they realized he was already dead, they go ahead and pull him on down. That never been done before. That was when they pulled him down without any bones being broken. That made him the spotless lamb. That made him the exact same spotless and perfect lamb of the resurrection.
Right.
And so and a lot of people skip over that anatomical.
There are so many scientific sides to this that we can go back and look really closely. I mean, even the water pouring out, right? That is a big deal. Right. That announces that he was dead, right? Even back then, they didn't know that. And so those things, so he got stabbed, water pours out along with blood. But there's so much to him dying on the cross that is so relatable in what we see through the previous Old Testament of books.
And what I love about that too is that the veil that separated the holy from the holy of holies was a massive sheer veil, long, and that veil was ripped and torn as if to signify there is now no difference between you and God. You can now fully approach the throne of God without the Jewish showering rituals, bell on your ankle type thing.
And my favorite note from that, because that to me is huge, right? What is this? It's not just, again, somebody dying and resurrecting is a huge miracle. But now what does it mean for us, right? Is that there is not that separation. But in that story, sometimes we skip over the fact that the veil wasn't just torn. Like if you look back at the Old Testament and you look at what it was made out of, like there's no way a man is going to rip as tall as it is, as thick a material. But not only was it ripped and torn, it was torn from the top down, right? Yeah. Which is signifying God is now opening up that we don't have that separation, that it wasn't man, it was God who did that. So man, just like.
So here's the thing.
So much great.
That is, man. And we could have a whole nother podcast just on this. So the apologetics of the death and burial and resurrection of Christ. So look, he dies, right? Then he's brought and put in a tomb. This stone is rolled in front. I mean, it takes tons of people to put this thing there, right? And then a woman comes to visit and he's gone, right? So we're trying to figure out, there's so many like people that have all this conspiracy theory that how the rock moved and how, oh, maybe he wasn't really dead, right? Or maybe he wasn't. There's all these other stories, and there's really good apologetics that's put together all this. I heard one where it was like, well, when they saw him on Emmaus, maybe he wasn't dead and he just made his way all the way down there. If you read the story of the miles that he walked and beaten and whipped and look, when they whipped him, they actually pulled off flesh. And I know that's gruesome as that sounds. That they're pulling that off with the tails. And then all of a sudden you think within 30 hours he takes a 7-mile walk down the road to go. Right. It's insane. It's insane. And so look, but here's the most important part, Dean, and this is my favorite part. I pray about this every time I'm in prayer. We pray. A lot of people will pray about the death and thank you for dying for me, Jesus. Right.
Right.
But more importantly, thank you for rising for me, Jesus.
Right.
Because here's the thing. Jesus isn't God if he doesn't rise.
Right.
Everybody else's deity, God, that they pray to are still buried. They're still dead.
And we all, and I love the story of resurrection morning because Mary shows up at the tomb, and we've all done what Mary has done before. We've all looked for the living among the dead. We've all tried to place things in our lives that shouldn't be there. We've all looked in the wrong place for the wrong thing at the wrong time. And I love the attitude the angel has when he says, "Why are you looking for the living among the dead? He has risen." Here comes the attitude, just like he said he was gonna. Mm-hmm. I love that. And we've all done that before. We've all done the women's role where we've looked for the wrong thing in the wrong place. And I find it interesting too, in a conversation now, and I'm going to get a little controversial, of women in ministry. We've always talked about, and one of Kirk and I's best mentors, one of our top people, Mama Mayo, is a woman. The controversy, I think, is dead and mute because who were the first people given the access to the news of the resurrection was a woman.
Yeah.
That's massive to me.
So let's do this as we wrap this up, because look, let's be honest. There's going to be people who are listening to this today who came to watch a baseball episode who don't really have a relationship with Christ. And look, we just want to let you know we love you.
That's the most important, right here.
We love you so much. We love that you're part of the Rushmore Show community. We're not ever kicking anybody out because they don't think the way that we do, believe the way that we do. But what is, Dean or Kirk, you can either answer this kind of on the spot here. What is the important thing to know this Easter season for maybe somebody who isn't in a relationship with Jesus, who maybe they've had that experience with family before, but it just never really stuck with them, or maybe they're just really far away from it. They love being a part of the Rushmore Show community, but they're just so far away from Christ. What is the thing that you think that would be important for them to know?
I'll take that one. And Kirk knows a little bit of my story over the last year and a half, 2 years. Went through a nasty divorce in my personal life. And every Sunday I get up, and every day I kind of look around and I go, well, here's my life. But here's the quote that I always love. Any Sunday or any day is a good day for a resurrection.
That's so good.
I love that because we as pastors, we put so much heart and energy into Easter Sunday, until we really realize, why don't we put the same amount of energy into every Sunday?
Come on.
So that kind of alludes to where I want to go. And look, and I'm just going to jump in there.
Go.
The thing with Easter Sunday, right? When I was a kid, we went to church 2 times a year, and sometimes it wasn't even then. I love my parents to death. God bless them. Sometimes we didn't go to church for years. I went with friends sometimes, but when you show up at Christmas and Easter, you know your attendance is going to be higher. It just is what it is, right? It's the big game. It's the time that I'm going to kind of wash away my sins or whatever for the next 8 months until Christmas or 6 months, whatever it is. But so that's where the big production part comes on. But here's the thing. When I showed up to church, I never had read the Bible. I didn't know what was going on. I just was impacted by people like Andy and Dean. I was impacted by good folks. I was broken. I was hurting. I was stuck in my ways, in addictions, in in a going through a messy relationship with Miss Brittany, and things were happening, and I needed some help. I could have used counseling. I could have used medicine. I chose to visit the church, and the church was everything I needed.
Yeah. So that's, and like I said, that's really at the end of this conversation here is the most important thing. We mentioned we're all three pastors who are in here. Like, we totally, this is just, man, this is it for us, right? This is what we live for, is helping people to gain and grow in their relationship with Christ, hands down. And even if we can, through the Rushmore show, through an episode where we're talking about what do we hate the most about MLB or about baseball, we can still share the gospel. And that's really, at the end of the day, if people don't remember what we hate about baseball, but they remember that Jesus loves them where they're at, but too much to leave them where they are, then I think that is really going to be the most important thing for them. So
I want to leave them with this.
Yeah.
Look, you ever see me and you need prayer? You want to message me? You want my personal phone number? If you want to have a conversation about how I got where I am, my testimony, it's my favorite thing to share. I'm sure Dean and Andy, where they're at, are open, welcoming into our churches, the churches we visit, opening to visiting you at your spot if you want to go have coffee, open wherever we need to be to really just be a friend and let you know why the resurrection changed our lives. And so I think that's a big deal. And I think my buddies here would be open to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So look, shoot us a message, send a comment, even if it's a direct message, anything like that, email us, let us know. And we would be happy to share more about the gospel with you, to share our testimonies, to pray for you, just to really kind of get you on the right path. So that's
and you can, and between the three of us, I'll take the night shift, because you can message me in the middle of the night, because I'll be up anyway.
Awesome.
I'll be at work.
On the night shift. Hey guys, we're going to move into our last part of the Rushmore show, our final segment on Who's Your George. If you've been with us the last few weeks, you've received our infielders, you've received our outfielders. Today we are going to do our pitching staff. And you know how we do it here at the Rushmore show? It is Who's Your George, but this time it's Who's Your George Seaver, better known as Tom. All right, Andy, I'm going to put you on the spot first. You went first today. Who are your pitchers? So this is what we're going to do. We're going to get 4 pitchers. Common pitching staff is 4 starters. And then usually there's a bunch of middle relief guys that nobody really cares about. So we're going to get you one setup guy to get you to the closer, and then you're going to finish off with your closer. Who's your Georgia closers? And this is going to, now remember this, guys, we're trying to put the best 2 teams possible and see who wins at the end. You guys are going to let us know who wins this game at the end. Dean, if you want to participate, go back and leave your infielders and outfielders on the other 2 episodes so that you can jump in. But look, here we go. Andy, what's your pitching staff for your George team?
All right, so 6 pitchers. Here we go. We're going to start, and this first pick is totally a biased pick because Dean, I don't know if I shared this with you, but I am an Angels fan. That's the team that I pull for. I did share that that's the one park I went to. But let's start off my pitching. I'm just going to go currently right now. Shohei Ohtani is on my pitching staff.
Polarizing. He's played like 3 seasons.
Ohtani's my dude.
Let's go.
Look, if I can get his offense too with his pitching, then without a doubt,
nice. I see where you're going there.
So Shohei is 100% on my team. He's the first guy I didn't even have to think about. My second one, I'm gonna go a little bit back. I'm gonna go to Randy Johnson. Johnson, especially if I'm playing against any kind of birds that might be flying by. I'm going for Randy Johnson. My next one. I'm going to go with the one that I'm pretty sure is going to be on many people's list is Nolan Ryan is going to be on my list here. And then this fourth one, Kirk's going to like it because he's a Yankee. But when I was kind of first getting into baseball, I was playing a video game and I remember this guy was a pitcher on it. And that's really the only thing I have to go off of other than he's got my same name. I'm going to go Andy Pettit. From my list one there, and I just liked he was Andy. It was one of those cool things growing up as a kid. So then my closers, here we go. this guy might have one thing about baseball, just side note, some of the best names have ever played in baseball. Like Coco Crisp. I mean, how cruel of a name. Like
his name's Cocolangelo.
Like, it's crazy. Anyway, so many cool names, and this guy is one of them. I'm gonna go with Raleigh Fingers. Raleigh Fingers, and then the mustache twirl and everything. He's got everything going for him. Raleigh Fingers is there for me. And just Raleigh Fingers, what a cool name. And then my closer, Q Enter Sandman, Mariano Rivera is here as my closer. So that's my 6 pitchers. Again, Ohtani, Johnson, Ryan, Pettit, Fingers, and Rivera are on my pitching staff. What do you think about that one, Kirk?
Very nice, very nice. Of course, we are going to have some Crushmores here. Mm-hmm. Great staff. I like the idea that you thought about the hitting side a little bit. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to go right off the bat with probably the best pitcher ever to live because he didn't throw 100 miles an hour and he knows how to use the plate. Greg Maddux.
Yep.
And he's also bringing in, I think, like 19 or 20 freaking Gold Gloves. So we're gonna have Greg Maddux be at the front end of my staff. Next pitcher is a Crushmore, Nolan Ryan, with his career strikeouts and no hitters and walks. Right, we learned that last week. So if you haven't seen that,
2,800.
Shameless plug for last week in Thomas. My next guy, a guy that I feel should be in the Hall of Fame. He is a guy that played for my favorite team and my team that I hate the most. Roger Clemens, the Rocket. And then I'm going to finish off with another guy who finished his career as a Yankee, but I hated him when he was a Yankee because he did terrible. The big unit, Randy Johnson. Johnson.
Yeah.
That's going to be a Crushmore with Andy. So that's 2 Crushmores. I'm going to finish off with a closer. I decided I'm going to bring in for my setup guy, another closer. Guy that's kind of reminds me of Raleigh Fingers. He's very similar, but he is, they both play for the A's. Eckersley, Dennis Eckersley, the Eck, man. This guy was insane. He had the long hair, the mustache, just crazy approach. And without further ado, the only unanimous Hall of Famer, Hit the Sandman. He's the best closer of all time, Mariano Rivera. So that is going to be my pitching staff. And Dean, who is your George of pitching staffs?
Okay.
Super team.
So it's growing up as a Braves fan, I had to go with the number 1, Greg Maddux. There's an overlap between me and Kirk on that one.
Rushmore.
Okay, Greg Maddux. If I had one pitcher, it's Game 7 of the World Series. Greg Maddux is taking the mound. As long as he's had enough rest, yeah, I'm good. Because after all, 76 pitch complete game.
There it is.
13 balls the entire game. Okay,
that's crazy.
That's just, and I forget the exact statistic, but he only saw X number of, and we were talking about stats earlier, X number of 3-0 counts, and a bunch of those were intentional walks anyway. So just Greg Maddux. Okay. Then I've got Randy Johnson, the big boy. Okay. Big calls after walk. Okay. Then I went with Pedro Martinez. Okay. Granted, he beat up the old guy the one time. He beat up Don Zimmer. It's fine. I can look past that. He's a great pitcher. Okay.
He's a great pitcher.
Then I went with kind of a wild card. Nobody's mentioned this yet, but a good old Atlanta Braves staple, Tom Glavin. He was up there.
No Smoltzy.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Him for the reliever.
No Smoltz. I took Glavin instead of Smoltz. I took Glavin instead of CC Sabathia too. He was on my list, and I X'd him out at the last minute. I'm like, you know what, Glavin. That's fine. For my closer, or actually, I'm going to go – I had 2 closers, okay? One – you can say one's a setup guy, but whatever. A very little-known closer out of Tampa Bay. He went to the Mariners later. Fernando Rodney. If you remember the name Fernando Rodney, he was the one. Yeah, he wore his hat not like this, but he cocked it over like this a little bit. It'll mess with you as a batter, which I think was part of his deal. I I've seen, and when he would do a strikeout to complete the game, he would shoot the moon. Bam. I've seen him personally in games throw 5 pitches, have a nice day. 5 pitches. That's it. That's all he was good for. That's all he needed. Done. Okay. Fernando Rodney. And then lastly, best closer of all time, Mariano Rivera. How do you not?
Triple Rushmore!
When you hear Enter Sandman playing over the speakers, it meant one thing. Get your car keys together. It's time to go home. The game's over. So that's what that meant.
Go. Hey, look, real quick. Here's your stat, man. This is why Greg Maddux is so good, and I don't understand why people don't love him.
You must have looked it up.
Greg Maddux faced 20,421 batters during his career. Only 310 of them saw a 3-0 count, and 177 of those guys were intentionally walked.
Boom. That's hey, Kirk, I actually hired Greg Maddux when he retired to walk my dog. The dog hadn't been walked yet. So.
oh, good one.
Yeah.
Wow. What a great
nice.
Love it.
Nice. Hey, well, look, this is been a great show. Dean, thank you for joining us. Guys, again, reach out to us. We'll put our, as usual, our social media and our emails and all that are down low. But thank you for coming along. It's been a great one. Next week, we're jumping into our end, which is going to be baseball movies. And we're going to finish off our team with our office. Who's the best coaches? Who's the best, office folks? And then here's the deal. I just want to say, look, it's been phenomenal so far. 100 subscribers we just passed. We just passed 2,000 views. Guys, but there are so many of you that are watching our show, participating, a part of the Rushmore community. It's free. Just hit the freaking like. Just hit it. Go subscribe. Hang out with us. Crush that freaking subscribe button, dude, because we need your help to just spread the word and get out there. We love you guys. And it's been fun. And like we always do, Andy.
This is the Rushmore Show, where it's all about your top 4 and nothing more.